With over 20 years in entertainment, expanding from music, television, radio, film, and so much more, Thembisa Mshaka continues to be a force to be reckoned with. Today we sit down with Thembisa to talk about how she became a trailblazer and what's new and next with her brands. Hello, Thembisa Mshaka. Thank you so much for joining us here on Gold Digger TV.
Hey, Tina Lee Jones. Good to be with you.
Yes. So listen, let's just get straight to it. Okay, wife, mother, director, executive producer. What is it that you don't do? How are you such a phenomenal woman and you make it look so easy?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that acknowledgement. The one thing I don't do is write poetry. I leave that to the professionals as far as writing goes. I feel like that is just an amazing ability, and that's just one I don't have. So I like to focus on the things that I have strengths in, and it just so happens that because I've been in the business so long, I've had the opportunity to dabble in multiple things. So, you know, I picked up the things that I liked. And I like being behind the scenes. I always have. So there's so many roles you can play behind the scenes, and I just, you know, try a little bit of everything.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Now, in 2009, you put a book out called Put Your Dreams First. Handle Your Entertainment Business.
Yep.
Tell us about that awesome book.
Well, thank you. Put Your Dreams First was a labor of love that was inspired by my own journey as a woman working in the hip-hop industry. I was a journalist. I was the rap editor for a trade magazine called Gavin that was based in San Francisco.
Yes.
And you could really count on your two hands how many women there were working behind the scenes in hip-hop radio, especially women of color, even smaller number. And because I was one of a very few on the West Coast, because, you know, hip-hop, the Mecca is here in New York. Absolutely. At that time, I was in Cali, so, you know, I just really, a lot of the time I felt pretty isolated, and I wanted the trials and tribulations, the experience, the mentorship without having to make the mistakes myself. I mean, don't we all, right?
Right.
Absolutely. So, couldn't get that. I was blessed to have some mentors, but I realized that there were a lot of people who weren't going to have access to the same level of mentorship that I had access to. People like the amazing author Terry Williams, image consultant Kelly Armstrong,
yes. Awesome.
A gentleman who is a promoter and events producer named Shelly Tatum out in San Francisco. These folks were really, really good to me, and I wanted to be able to sort of bottle that in a piece of work that anyone could take with them at any time and refer to throughout their careers. So after 7 years of researching, writing, interviewing, editing, Put Your Dreams First was born.
Awesome, awesome. So tell me, like, okay, you just mentioned your mentors, some of your mentors. Tell me, what were some of the biggest or best lessons that they taught you?
Well, for one, it was to always take the meeting. That was one of the that's one of those things that I still carry with me. You know, there's no harm in a conversation as long as it's happening on a professional level. Right. Now, if somebody's asking you to take a meeting at 3 a.m. at the strip club or in a hotel room after midnight, that's probably not the meeting to take.
Exactly.
You know, but you steer it toward, let's have breakfast in a public place, let's have lunch somewhere, or let's meet in an office without a couch. And we go from there. So always take the meeting. There's no harm in a conversation. You never know who you're going to meet, what you're going to learn. And that was definitely one of the big things that I got from my mentors. Also, just realizing that anyone that you are going to encounter is going to either enhance or damage your reputation. And it's up to you to manage your reputation. Your reputation is like currency. It's just as good and just as precious as money, and it usually lasts longer. You know, cash is a lot more fluid. You know, we all have our ups and downs in terms of where we are financially, but your reputation you can always keep sterling if you act with integrity. And, you know, I pride myself on conducting myself in such a way that when people hear my name or they say my name, usually a positive is associated with it. And, and that's something that I've been sort of manicuring over my 20 plus years in the industry, just making sure that people are speaking about me in a way that helps to protect my brand, elevate my brand, and that was something that my mentors also imparted to me.
And yes, they do it. When I hear your name, it's always positive energy. Yes, Thembisa, she's a great person. She's not a diva. She's approachable, which is all great, because you don't always get that from, women in positions, in entertainment,
Well, one of the things that I found was difficult was so many young women particularly would come up to me like after a speaking event or after a panel, because I would moderate panels or appear on them very often. And I love giving back by speaking at colleges, universities, high schools, etc. Young girls will come up to me, how did you do it? How did you get in? And that was kind of what sparked the interest for the book. It was like, I can't mentor all these girls, because mentorship really takes an ongoing commitment for more than just a few weeks or even a few months. Like, you got to work with kids for like a year or so at the minimum to really be able to make a difference with them, I think.
Exactly.
So I said, what can I do? Well, let me get the experiences of as many women as possible and put them in one place, so that no matter what people's career interests are or where they are in the business, a lot of people weren't even starting out. They were my colleagues. They were already in the game, but they wanted to change lanes. They wanted to go from music to TV, or from TV to film, or from music to new media, and they were just unsure about how to change lanes and what skills were going to be transferable. And Put Your Dreams First, by the time I was done with it, I had over 90 different women who were gracious enough to interview with me. People like Lisa Cortez, executive producer of Precious and Shadowboxer, Monique, who won the Oscar for Precious, Michelle Ndegiocello, Kathy Hughes, some women of note who were really amazing and who don't always do interviews in depth or give their time. They were really gracious enough to share that with me. And then there's a lot of women who work behind the scenes whose names you may not know. Taish Harris, who's a longtime marketing maven within the music world. Shanti Das, another person who's done tremendous amount of marketing for various record companies. So it's just been amazing to see the response from readers who were like, you know what, I live, in a market that is not one of the big entertainment markets. I wasn't sure if I should move or not. This book helped me understand how to plot my path without necessarily uprooting myself or doing it when the time was right, taking calculated risks, learning from the mistakes that they already made so I don't have to make them, and knowing that you can be successful in the business without showing skin, without sleeping with whoever to get ahead, and that you can actually be successful that way, because media doesn't necessarily portray that. They don't let you know that that actually happens, that people go through life and maintain their self-esteem and maintain their integrity
and self-respect.
And their self-respect, and they're able to make a living in entertainment.
Absolutely. And what was really great, to see Vanessa Williams write the foreword for the book.
Yes.
And you said that she was adamant about writing it herself, because some people, their name is, under a foreword, but they never wrote it. Their assistant wrote it.
Right.
But you said she was adamant about, writing the foreword herself, which I thought was amazing. It was an amazing story that she put in the foreword as well. So that was great.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to her for just lending her name and all of her talent. I mean, she's one of those people who has mastery in everything. Broadway, recorded music, television, film, and that was the kind of forward guest that I wanted. And it was a short list of people. I was like, and she was on it, and when I approached her about it, she didn't even blink. She was like, yes, I will do it.
Yes.
I'll be filming Hannah Montana the movie. I'll be in a trailer in wherever she was. I feel like it was Tennessee or somewhere. She was like...
in a cornfield.
Yeah, exactly. And she did it from her BlackBerry, and she emailed it to me. I mean, it was incredible.
Wow, amazing.
Shout out to Vanessa Williams. She is the real deal.
That's good. She seems real in her interviews. All right. Now, Kim Cooper... You interviewed her in the book, and I love how she said you have to learn how to manage your emotions, learn how to pick your battles, and put your game face on. Tell us about that, because a lot of girls don't understand that. That's a powerful statement.
Yeah, well, I had to learn that for myself firsthand. I had a situation where I got really upset in a situation, And the way I express my upset generally is through tears, like crying, like when I get mad and the tears spring out of my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I cry, obviously, when I'm emotional or when something is sad or tragic or whatever. But I just happen to be one of those women where I have angry tears too, right?
Right.
So in this situation, I got upset and I started crying. And one of my really good friends in the business, his name is Jason Ricks. He was promotions director for Arista Records and Bad Boy for a long time. Lots of different labels, broke many hip hop and R&B artists. And now he works in publishing. But at that time, we were at the Gavin Seminar in San Francisco, and he just pulled me to the cut. And this is something that so many men don't do. He just came to me and said, T, you know what? I know you're mad, but nobody is going to perceive it as that. They're going to perceive it as you being weak. So when you're crying or you need that moment, you need to go do that privately, just so that you can protect your reputation, right?
Exactly.
And not be misinterpreted. And, that was one of those things that I had to learn from expressing my emotion. But thank God I had him there to say,
to pull your
listen,
coat.
yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of the time women let emotions run them. What we have to remember is that we're in charge of our emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that when men conduct business, it may get intense or heated, but they rarely let their emotions get in the way of the transaction.
You don't really see a man crying.
Yeah, or if they fight, they get over it, they play golf, they still do the deal.
Right.
Women fight and it turns into a falling out and they never speak again, or they hold grudges, or they start, backbiting or whatever. And, that's a cue that we can take from men. It's like, listen, whatever, we have our differences, but we're about to get this money.
Absolutely, because, it's all about the bigger picture. That's what some people fail to, realize when you're in a situation, you're arguing, no, I want this, I want that.
Right.
What is the bigger picture? Let's get this money. Like you said, let's make this happen. Let's do this successful commercial, film, whatever it is.
Right.
And just put our differences aside for now.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, now, and also, one last thing about the book, you talked about sister swans. And I loved how you described the sister swans in the book so graciously, floating across the pond, just so beautiful. I felt beautiful reading it,
Because you are a sister swan, so you were like, yes, she's talking about me. So the sister swans idea really came from just noticing how swans are when you see them on the water, right? They're gliding effortlessly. It doesn't look like any work is being put in. But then when you go beneath the surface of the water, you can see how furiously those webbed feet are moving, and they're moving so fast and with so much determination and so much precision to get them to where they want to go. And I feel like a lot of the time women make it look easy, but it belies the level of tremendous effort, stress, and strain that they may be enduring to put forth that image. And what I was saying to them was, pat yourself on the back for being that person, but also give yourself the opportunity to self-care at the same time. Like, take care of yourself, recharge when you need to, and recognize that you're not the only one experiencing that, feeling like you have to kind of keep up an appearance or make it look easy, because in the end, that usually backfires on us in terms of our health, our state of mind, a feeling of something's getting left behind, whether it's creating a family or having a partner, and a lot of us end up married to our careers and looking back and going, well, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind, or, the career gets pulled out from under them because of market forces or changes within the company or the field that they work in. And it's like, okay, I did all this for what? Now I have to reinvent myself. So sister swans make it look easy, but they put in the work, and they're to be acknowledged. And that was, my goal with Put Your Dreams First, was to give voice to all of those women who, to me, all of them were sister swans, all 90-some odd women that I interviewed in the book,
Right, awesome. So it's definitely important to you as an entertainment vet to nurture the newbies, or entertainment virgins is what you call them, into sister swans, right?
Yes. You're taking me back. I mean, it's been a while since I really talked in depth about the book, but yes.
When I saw entertainment virgins, I was like, yes, that's something I would say. I loved it.
Oh, thanks. Well, yes, I really feel like we are only as good as the pipeline that we keep full of powerful, driven women of integrity who come into our business. You know, we have to fill that pipeline with women like that, women of character, women who want to create and leave a legacy within our business. And the generations before us have given us so many great role models, not just as artists, but also as entrepreneurs, as producers, as content creators. And I wanted to move that forward by, you know, talking about women of this generation who are doing the same thing. So hopefully the book serves as a way for younger women, the next generation, to have a blueprint. Right. And know that they're not alone, and that the way they want to pursue it, they can still be successful.
So let me ask you, did your parents ever try to deter you from entertainment? Because I know a lot of parents, you know, they're like, no, it's a pipe dream, you'll never make it, it's too hard, nobody ever does that. You know, did they ever try to deter you away from it?
You know what's crazy about it is that my parents had a direct link to how they thought about the entertainment industry. They thought it was just artists, like people who sing, people who play. So if you weren't a vocalist or you weren't an instrumentalist, then how else were you going to make it in the business? Because that's the music business, the people who do the music, right? So, you know, the most singing that I had done to their knowledge while I was living in the house with them was Glee Club in high school, you know, and I did do vocal training and I was a singer, but I knew right away that I was not recording artist level singer. That wasn't really my thing. And I'm more behind the scenes anyway. Like, I'm bugged out right now that I'm on this show with you because I'm more like, let me be in the cut, let me be making something instead of be talking about myself. But they didn't necessarily dissuade me, but they didn't really get it when I said, you know, I work in the entertainment industry, I work in the music business, and I'm a music journalist. They were like,
what's that?
How's that work? You're not singing, you're not making no records. Are they paying you? Like, what is that? And then they started to get the magazine. It was a weekly magazine, and I had a subscription sent to the house. They started getting the magazine every week, and they were like, oh, okay, well, all right.
Oh, well, this is what you do.
Yeah,
okay.
Got it. If it's going to keep you from having your hand out with us, then this is okay with us. And, you know, from the gate, my maternal grandmother, God rest her soul, she was always supportive. She was like, whatever you want to do, you can do it. You have what you need. You know, everybody supports you no matter what it is. I know your parents are kind of like not sure about this, but, you know, it's going to work out. I believe in you. And so having awesome. That, you know, really just helped me when I really couldn't explain to my parents, like, what it was. Because my father was always a salesman of some kind. And then my mom, may she rest in peace, she was a social worker and a clinician, and she was like a therapist, and so she had worked with everyone from inmates to the mentally ill to children. Wow. You know, just everybody. And so
she was all about the 401k,
well,
pension.
Exactly. And also like, you know, really coming from a place of like, you know, I do health and human services for a living, which is something concrete that everybody needs, but everybody doesn't need the music business, right? Like, how's this gonna work? And so, you know, she's like, we like music, but is that sustainable? And, you know, once she realized that it was, she was like, I'm good, whatever you want to do. And so the book is dedicated to her because she didn't live to see it completed, but, you know, I knew that I had to finish it because all I could think about was, you know, her saying to me, you know, you're not in the business of quitting. Like, that's just not what you do.
No, you're not.
So you need to see this through, even if you feel like it's more than you can chew based on what it has become or what it's evolved into, but, you know, see it through. And so...
Right, and you never know who's watching.
That's right.
You never know who's watching.
And I feel like she still smiles down, and, you know, she guided me through that whole process. So, you know, it's a blessing.
Yes, yes. So let me ask you, ever since I met you, which was like, what, 5, 6 years ago? I think 2008 we met.
I don't know. I feel like it's been longer, but...
Maybe, you know. But I know you've always been a family woman. So do you ever incorporate your husband and kids into any of your projects?
Well, it's interesting. My son is a skater, and he was asked to perform in a short film, and the director wrote a long-form screenplay, and she's asked me to produce this film. It's called Skateboard, Skateboard. And he is going to be the lead young actor in this in this feature. So now we have a project that we are literally working on together, a feature film. My husband is a stand-up comic when he is not selling real estate. So I am very often either the fodder for the routine or the sounding board for the routine. So, you know, we don't necessarily work together, but I feel like, you know, he's able to bounce stuff off me or, you know, throw me under the bus on stage, which, you know, hey, if he gets a laugh, I'm all for it. But yeah, you know, our family is, I think, attuned to entertainment because my husband is also a music producer and he was once a recording artist, so he understands the game and, you know, he's always been very supportive. So
that's important when you're wearing so many hats in entertainment that you have someone at home that understands, hey, I'll be home in a couple more hours, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, you know, for us, it's always been about workability, like how can we make it work? Because we moved to New York, most of our families were in California and still are. So we had to create our own village once we had children so that we could each fulfill on the things we wanted to do, whether it was career related or creative. And, you know, we found ways to make it work by having people in our lives and putting systems in place that allow for us each to, you know, do our thing. So shout out to Timor. Without him, I couldn't do it.
Shout out, Timor.
Yes.
We love you. Thank you for supporting your wife.
Yes,
Thank you.
Word. Shout out to Comic Diversity, which is this comedy troupe, and they have been really doing some amazing work in New York at various venues, really instituting the idea that everybody laughs and everybody deserves to be seen as a comic and not just on gay night or women's night or Latin night. Like all the great comics, no matter what their background, should all be on one stage, on one show for everyone to enjoy, and that's what Comic Diversity is all about.
I'll have to come out one night.
Yeah, they are every last Tuesday of the month at the Grizzly Pear, I think still, and they're constantly doing different shows. They're on Facebook, Comic Diversity, so this is a big shout out for Comic Diversity, which I'm a big supporter of. But yeah, you can like their stuff on Facebook and go to their shows.
Definitely check it out soon.
Yeah.
Thembisa, has there ever been a time, or should I say when there was a time, where you really had to prove yourself? As if to say, yes, I am a woman, but I can do this. Tell me, when did the Claire Huxtable have to come out of you? When did Claire have to come out?
Wow. I think it was my very first job. I think it was being the rap editor at Gavin, because there had been all men prior to that. And I was the youngest editor, the first African American and the first woman rap editor of Gavin. So there was a lot of pressure, a lot of people giving me the side eye, like, what does this girl, not even a woman, what does this girl know about rap, right? Is she well versed? Does she understand the culture? You know, how connected is she? Because I was kind of like, boom, out of nowhere, straight out of school, and I was on the West Coast. I hadn't come from a label or a publicist firm or anything like that. So nobody really knew how to read me. So they were all kind of like, let's see how long this lasts. Well, as it turned out, I ended up being there for almost 5 years. So, no, 5 years, 1993 to 1998, and that was really like a critical time for hip hop because it had gone from being something that college stations really were dominating with to crossing over to contemporary hit radio stations and having pop stations embrace rap. You know, that was around the time that Snoop Dogg blew up with 800,000 copies sold of Doggy Style, and then Bad Boy comes into prominence, and then you have the South coming in with Suave House Records, and Def Jam South got created out of that, you know, popularity of Southern music. Atlanta started to blow up. So all these things were happening in hip hop culture within that 5-year period. And I was there longer than any other editor combined.
And so you just blew them out the way.
Yeah, so it made them understand gender has no basis on whether or not you're qualified.
Or
That's
age.
right. That's right.
That's right, as a matter of fact, yes. So in the past 2 to 3 years, you put out 2 independent films. You had a baby.
Yeah.
So what's next for Thembisa Mshaka and your brands? What's next?
Ooh, well, I just finished my first feature-length screenplay. It's called Islamic Speed Dating. It's a romantic comedy.
Yes. That ought to be really fun.
It's definitely different, and it's going to bring across a unique point of view in terms of how people of the Muslim faith pursue and find their partners and mates. So it's going to be a fun ride, and I have entered it into some screenplay contests, so we will see what happens on the festival circuit with that. The Divorce Counselor and First Kiss are still on Vimeo, so people can watch them. They only take up 10 minutes or 3 minutes or 13 minutes if you watch both of your time. So they're really great, you know, if you want to check them out. They're on vimeo.com/Thembisa. Easy to find, Thembisa. And, you know, what's next for me is really just making that full-on transition. Like, I love just being creative, but I really want to produce for film on a full-time basis, and so that's the agenda now. I'm also working on a docu-series for television called Throwing Shade, House of New York. It is a show that brings together African American and Latino and Afro-Latino men who are in the ballroom scene here in New York. So it is an LGBT series, but I believe it is one that is going to expand the points of view that people have around African American men who, you know, participate in the ballroom scene and who may be LGBT. So it's really about telling great human stories, regardless of what the backgrounds are. And shout out to Will Robinson and Dre, who are the co-creators of Throwing Shade, for bringing me on to help them get that story out in a way that doesn't make gay people the butt of the joke or the token on the show, or have them going at each other's throats. It really is uplifting and competitive and exciting without disrespecting anyone. So Throwing Shade is in development. We are looking for a network partner. We are looking for sponsors, and very excited about that show as well.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Gold Digger TV. We really do appreciate you coming in and sharing your story and inspiring young women and girls, you know, that you can be successful in this entertainment industry, you know, without laying on your back, and you can earn your stripes respectfully with integrity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina Lee Jones. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes.
Hey, I'm Thembisa Mshaka, and you are watching Gold Digger TV with the one, the only, Tina Lee Jones. Keep it right here.